everybody, and welcome to the Administration and Operations meeting of June the 17th. Thanks, everybody, for coming. As far as attendance, Councillor Chambers and Councillor Garneau are not here as yet. We're not sure if Councillor Garneau is coming or Councillor Chambers, but we'll go there when we get there. As far as the agenda, anybody have anything to add? Oh, Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just one quick item under other business.
Okay. Who else was that? Councillor Bell.
Yeah, likewise, Mr. Chair. One item under any other business.
Okay. Councillor Miller.
Two items, Mr. Chair, under other business. One concerning hydro poles and the other one concerning a veterans walkway.
Any others? Seeing none, get a motion to approve as amended. Mayor Bailey, Councillor Coleman, questions? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest, any at this point? Seeing none, just let me know if some come up through the meeting. Delegations, presentations, we do not have any today. As far as adoption of the previous minutes, can I get a mover, please? Councillor Howes, Councillor Bell, questions? No questions on the previous minutes. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none. Consent items to be approved. We've got a couple of them here. 7.1. We got 7.1 to 7.115. 7.15. Councillor Coleman, seconder. Councillor Oakley, questions? Councillor Miller.
Yeah, I don't need it separated, but I do have a question on 7.1.4, and that's the tendering of the administration of the bridge projects.
Okay, go ahead.
Just reading over the report, one of the bridges taken out was Robinson Road Bridge. It was excluded, and that's until the Cleaver Road Bridge study is completed. I have to ask, but I'm assuming that this bridge is good for another year or two.
Who can speak to that? Dave?
Through the chair, that's correct. It's maintenance, but it's non-critical maintenance.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, any others? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Oh, Councillor Garneau is online, so we've got a full committee. Thank you very much. 7.2, consent items to be received. It looks as though there's 3 of them there. Mover. Oh, Councillor Howes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would have some questions about 7.2.2.
Okay. You've moved to get on the floor. Seconder. Mayor Bailey. Councillor Howes?
Thank you. Through the chair. To staff, I have some questions. We have some questions that came in from the media, which I forwarded to staff. Hopefully they can respond in more detail where appropriate. A couple of my questions, so I have 3. Figure 3 within the report references statistics on how many speeding incidents, and it's noticeable that on what appears to be Saturdays and Sundays there are no statistics, and I'm pretty sure that we are still doing ticketing on Saturdays and Sundays. I wonder if you could speak to that, and then I'll follow up with other questions.
Go ahead.
Through the chair to the councillor, yes, there are still speeding incidents on the weekend. That data was pulled from Monday to Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. to do some comparisons between pre and post ASC implementation. So that's why you're only seeing the Monday to Friday there. But there are speeding incidents happening on the weekend, and there are penalty orders being issued on the weekend.
Okay, so through the chair, in future reports, we might see some statistics beyond the work days, so to speak? Okay, thank you. And I did want to overall thank staff for this report. It is a hot topic within the community, and it sets the stage for future advancement of this type of work. My other question was, there's approximately 5% appeal rate to the number of tickets that go out. Can you tell us, and I'm not looking for detailed specifics, but generally, are the tickets upheld despite the appeal process, or can you speak to that a little bit?
Greg may have more detail to add here, but my understanding is that they're usually upheld and very infrequently overturned.
Okay, and that's all I need on that right now. And then my last two questions are related to geography. From this, we capture license plates, and through that, we have some idea of where people live. Can you speak anecdotally about if we have 1,000 speeders, what percentage of those speeders would be considered local speeders from within the county, and what percentage would be from outside of the county? And then my other geography-related question was, in a previous meeting, we had discussed the next automatic speed enforcement to be on Grand River Street North near the high school. It looks now like we have some other sites in mind, and it's appropriate that we spread these around the county, but I'm just wondering, for people who ask, do you have an estimate on when we will be re-looking at one on Grand River Street North? So that concludes my questions.
Through the chair to Councillor, on the geography question, we kind of went through and just did a quick snapshot of what it was looking like in terms of where the registered owners, where their vehicles are registered. I would say roughly kind of between 40 to 50% are more local, so county, city of Brantford, and then roughly 50% would be outside of the county. We can definitely bring forward a more detailed map of that in a future report, if that's of interest for council. And then in terms of where things are going and kind of the priority location, I think we know the next two, and that's outlined in the report. I can't speak to when what's coming up next. Likely next year, says Greg.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Haley. Haley, I guess when we're looking at the responses of people driving, we expect to see a decrease in speeders, which we have. But what I didn't expect was the number of vehicles using that route. It just seems like there's quite a few people avoiding that area altogether. Was that expected? Do we see that in other municipalities?
Through the chair to Councillor, I don't think we've necessarily seen that. I think it's hard with just such a small snapshot of data to truly understand how the road's being used. I think once we have this program for over a year, we'll have a better understanding of kind of people's driving habits, especially since we're comparing, September, November, when it's a lot of activities and things happening at the fairgrounds and things like that, versus the dead of winter when maybe people aren't on the road or driving as much. But we'll have to kind of keep analyzing the data and see if people are changing their driving habits, and if we're seeing a mass exodus from this road because of ASC, we can continue to monitor that moving forward.
Okay, yeah, because I'd be interested to know if people are avoiding it, what other roads they're taking. Are businesses, obviously there's not that many in that area, but would businesses suffer as a result of these speed cameras and so forth? So, okay, keep collecting the data and we'll see. Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Haley. The reduction in number of vehicles speeding is great on a percentage basis. Is that typically what you'd expect to see? Are we getting the results that we would expect from this automatic speed enforcement?
Through the chair to Councillor Bell, I would say yes. I think based on our business case that we prepared and brought forward back in 2024, it's quite in line with what we were expecting in terms of how speeding was going to decrease in the area. I think shocking maybe not shocking, but I think in other municipalities, there's often a lot more kind of up and down in terms of people learning and changing, and you'll see that speeding data kind of fluctuate a little bit more. But when we look at our speeding incident data, it seems to be really a gradual decline as ASC has been implemented. So it'll be interesting to see if that data continues to tell that story moving forward, and how driver behavior is changing in the area.
Any other questions on 722? Okay, seeing none, we've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor to receive? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, Section 8, staff reports, RPT-0166-25. We got a noise bylaw update. Can I get it on the floor, please? Councillor Howes, Councillor McAlpine. Questions on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.2, RPT-0177-25. It's the engineering services for detailed design of 2 new sanitary pumping stations. Can I get a mover to get it on the floor? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Kyle. Questions on that report? Councillor Miller.
This is for this report, but there's 2 other reports later on in the agenda, similar questions. This is for water, wastewater, and the project is funded from development charges, wastewater reserves, water reserves, and the general levy. I understand development charges, why we would fund it from that. I understand why we would fund it from wastewater reserves and water reserves. What I'd like to know is how does staff determine that some water work or some wastewater work should be put on the general levy? And how much would be put on the general levy for this? It doesn't break it down.
Who can? Mark?
Through the chair to Councillor Miller. The general levy portion is actually just a small portion related to the road work. Whenever we're doing some linear work for the water main replacements or the force mains, we're going to tackle some of the road improvements, but they're just minor.
Okay, then I don't have to sound the alarm over that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, nothing huge.
Any other questions on that report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.3, RPT-0113-25. We got various parking and traffic modifications. Can I get a mover? Councillor Howes. Councillor Oakley. Questions on that report? Councillor Howes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have some questions for Rick. Again, through the chair. Thanks for the report, Rick. My questions are about the North Ward School area. I'm old enough to have attended North Ward School when we all walked, really old. We all walked to school and we all even walked home at lunch, and there were not problems with parked cars and parents waiting to pick up their kids. But I anticipate that some of the changes that you're proposing are going to be a bit of a shock to the habits of some of the families that transport their kids to and from North Ward School. And I presume that this is complaint-based, but I wonder if you could give us a little bit of an education on this and kind of describe what the problems have been and how you see this as a safety solution, because I see our phones ringing once these changes are implemented, because it's going to be a big shift to how people operate.
Thank you to the chair and councillor. Thank you for the question. Yes, anytime parking restrictions are modified, there does seem to be questions and that sort of thing. All 3 schools in the area are predominantly based on complaints and bylaw being, going out, bylaw enforcement department going out to investigate and review these areas. And they have, in particular to the Northwood Elementary Schools, they find that in a lot of these areas where we're recommending no stopping areas, and it's a lot at intersections, because there's no parking restrictions currently in place. And what the guardians and parents are doing that are picking up the students, they're idling their cars in these no parking restricted areas, and that's not providing enforcement for that area because they're only in the area, in the parking restricted areas, idling their vehicles. So to enhance that restriction, we're recommending to eliminate the no parking restrictions with the no stopping. So as an example, at Market, right at the intersection of Silver, there's a no parking already currently in place. It's about 15 meters from the intersection, so we're just modifying that from no parking to no stopping, as well as on Franklin at the intersection of Silver. And there's an existing no stopping on Kathleen on the south side, so we're just recommending to extending that right around the curb there to eliminate the parents and guardians stopping in that area. There is still available parking for parents to stop on opposing lanes and further away from the school if they wish to do so. We feel that these are, especially with pedestrians walking, we wish for the pedestrians to cross at intersections. So to accommodate that, we wish to enhance the restrictions by implementing the no stoppings at these various school areas to enhance that enforcement piece.
Councillor House?
Thank you, and a quick follow-up through the chair. So in all of these side streets near the school, if you're the first parent to show up, you have a parking spot, and you can wait for your kid, and hopefully you're not idling while you're waiting. Anybody else who doesn't catch one of those available parking spots, they're going to either park further away, which is the best scenario, or they're going to take their chances that they don't get caught. That's human nature, right? That's, I'm only going to be here for a minute. Johnny's coming out of the school, and is enforcement through our bylaw officers or through OPP or both, or how does the enforcement work?
Typically through parking restrictions, I believe it's our enforcement predominantly that reviews and goes there. The OPP can lay tickets, but it's typically bylaw enforcement.
Thank you. Okay.
Councillor Bell?
Through you to Rick. You know we've had a few complaints about parking at the end of Cobblestone as it approaches Granville. Could you just say something about the logic you've applied here? Because I see we still have parking allowed on the section between Irongate and Granville. And I wonder whether you've had any inputs from the crossing guard there, because every time I go past there, I get a lecture from the crossing guard about the issues that she, or now he, faces.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chair, Councillor, for the question. So in particular, Councillor, I believe you are making reference to the Granville Circle between Cobblestone and I guess Granville Circle again, in between the two schools?
It's really more the end of Cobblestone as it hits Granville, where the crossing guard operates.
Oh, I see.
And school buses come down Cobblestone, they turn into Granville, and I've had a lot of complaints.
Oh, right at the oh, sorry, apologies.
I've had a lot of complaints, as you're aware of, from residents and actually from parents of children there.
Yeah.
So it would appear to me that's the last place we want to allow parking. When a school bus tries to turn there, it's quite a challenge if there's parking on the north side of Cobblestone.
To the Chair and Councillor, thank you for the question. Yes, we have actually implemented in the past, we have a no stopping on cobblestone at Granville Circle. And I believe it's 20 meters on the north and south sides. And so that accommodates the churning radius for all the school buses. It's not indicated on the drawing, my apologies for that, but the stopping zone has already been implemented a couple years ago at that always stop. So there is no stopping on Cobblestone Drive on the north and south side.
Okay, so it's just not shown on the...
It's just not shown on the drawing, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.4, RPT-01435-25, St. George Infrastructure Front-Ending Agreement. Can I get a mover to get it on the floor? Councillor Oakley, Councillor McAlpine. Mr. Walton going to speak to this?
Through the chair. Morning, everyone. I'm actually going to speak to both reports. This and the next report are fairly intertwined, I would say, and I'll speak to both of them. So these two agreements, they fit together and they need to be considered together because there's parts of both of them that are the same. And this is a big project, and county staff have been working on this for a long time. Pre-2014. The EA started in 2014. The landowners group up there actually started before that on some of their own studies and getting things going. So it's been the wastewater treatment plant's been the big Achilles heel to this project all along. So in the actual agreement, we're talking about 5 development properties getting together and working together with the county to help this project go ahead. There's $85 million in infrastructure. That's certainly a bit aided by the $35 million that we're going to get from the province for the wastewater treatment plant. And for the reduced cost financing we're going to get from the landowner, what's known as the landowners group, we're agreeing to them to hold 2,500 cubic meters per day of the capacity for their developments. We're also, hopefully by next Thursday, applying for a grant for the water plant under another provincial grant, and we're really hopeful of another $10 million to come for that. If we get that, the financing piece of this for the water actually goes away. We can handle the rest of that on our own. So that we all got our fingers crossed on that one. What we're asking for today on both agreements is agreement in principle, because we want to go out for some public consultation on the allocation policy one. And really, you can't pass one of these without the other. They're so intertwined. So the allocation policy, we already have an allocation policy for Paris. This one is similar, but the reasons for it and the goals are much different. In Paris, our allocation policy is there so we can get through with the developments we have proposed till when the wastewater treatment plant is upgraded. And we're only letting people, our developers, register in lots of 100 units of 100 phase for residential units in each phase as they register. St. George is entirely different. Once the wastewater treatment plant's up and going, we have lots of capacity. We actually want that money to start flowing there for the 60 million that we're spending there, 35 from the province, and we need to get that going. And so of the 2,500 cubic meters the landowners group gets, we're hoping they're working towards getting that going. And part of the agreement with them in the front-ending agreement is for us to come up with, for the 5 developments, a joint phasing plan as to how this is going to roll out, which I think is very important. We include in the landowners group the 2,500 cubic meters for them. There's 363 for infill developments, which we've noted. And we've got an interesting one here, 412 cubic meters for increasing density in developments which are already approved and for other developers that might come forward. And obviously this isn't a ton of capacity, but it's some. I think the important part of this one is this increased development. There's all of the 5 development properties the landowners group have approvals through LPAT or the OLT. we know that the market has changed. We know that there's going to be some changes in some of these developments, and this allows us to increase the density in some of these where it's required. So we are planning a 30-day public consultation on the allocation policy. We're not planning to have any sort of a public meeting, but we plan on using Engage brand. We do plan on having a direct contact with the developers that we would have identified through the interim control bylaw process that we had with this area. So, so for both of them, we're asking for approval in principle today, and then come back in the July cycle and get them approved. That's the end of my comments, and I'm glad to answer any questions, Chair.
Thank you for that. Any questions? We'll, even though we've just got the first one on the floor, we can, if they bleed into the other one, we can do that as well. So Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Rob. Rob, the capacity of 3,500 cubic metres a day, how much development will that permit?
Well, it's,
Because I think we've got, I forget how many, 2,500 dwellings that are basically in the plan. Will that 35?
around 3,000, I believe.
Well, 3,000.
Yeah.
How much of that?
It's about 1 cubic meter per unit, plus or minus, depending on whether you're a townhouse or a single family. But per single family home, it's about 1 cubic meter per.
So this will accommodate all the known planned development in St. George?
I think the 3,900 will cover all those, because what we find is our allocation or our development allocation amount of 350 cubic meters per capita per day is higher than what we're experiencing. You know, we're down into the 200s really. Is it 350 or 300 in our development policy, Mark? 350, yeah. So we're finding it coming in lower than that. So we're hopeful that there's more capacity there. And how you find that out is over time, we track it. And that development tracker that's part of the allocation policy, every 3, 4, 6 months, whatever, we're updating that and watching how the trends are going. And, you know, you don't see trends in 3 to 6 months, but you see them in 5 years.
Any other? Councillor Miller, then Councillor Chambers.
Just a couple questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Rob. Rob, the money loaned by the landowners group, do we know what the interest rate would be on that?
Through the chair to Councillor Miller, we're negotiating that right as we speak.
Okay. You said it would be lower than, but.
Yeah.
Okay. This still be
We would pay right now 4.5% from Infrastructure Ontario for this, and it's going to be much lower than that.
Okay. In the report, you said it doesn't go against the county's annual repayment limit. I think that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, because it still has to be repaid. And my concern, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So I don't know how when we're looking at our debt limits and what our capacity is to do other projects in the county, how we account for that. Maybe, I don't know if that's a finance question or.
Through the chair to Councillor Miller, it is a finance question, but I think I can answer it. It will be tracked along with all the other finances. Actually, until Mark Maxwell and Stephanie DiGiovanni, they actually did a really great job they did a projection of how long it would take to pay this back. And in the agreement, there is a 10-year window we considered as to how that should be paid back or paid out in the 10 years. A very conservative estimation of building permits would have this paid off in less than 10 years, quite easily.
Okay. I mean, you're here today, we're here today, but we don't know who's going to be here in 5 years. And it has to be front and center of what we got to pay back. But I'll leave that for another day. And since you're up there, wastewater allocation, if I'm looking at your wastewater allocation, where would I put, say, something like a Russell Heights, an affordable housing development that comes along? We're always looking for places, right? So we don't know about it today, but we might get one in next year, 2 years' time. Where would we put that allocation?
Yeah, through the chair, Russell Heights is already accounted for in the.
I'm just using that as an example, though.
Use that as an example, and that's exactly right. So properties that would come up for that that are within the built-up area and have pipes in front of them, they would all be considered for the infill development as they come along.
Okay.
And when we put the list together of those, we had Russell Heights, there's about 5 properties that are on that list already, which clearly fit within the 363. And the, I think it's Brand Star Developments at the north end there, we consider them in that too, and they're going to be going ahead now,
All right. Okay,
ahead of they can go ahead of the wastewater treatment plant.
okay, fair enough. Thank you very much.
Okay. Just before we get to Councillor Chambers there, we're starting to speak of 8.5. So can I just get a mover and a seconder for 8.5 as well? Councillor Hausman or Bailey, just so it's on the floor and we can talk about it. Thank you for that. And one other thing, Councillor Miller, I know we don't know who will be here in 5 years, but we know Rob won't be here in 5 years. So just to clarify that. Councillor Chambers.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Rob, this obviously paves the way for a huge increase in residential development. And I'm just wondering how employment land development factors into this, because the last thing you want to do is have a whole bunch of residential development without employment lands, because your ratios get all out of whack and pretty soon nobody can afford to do anything.
Through the chair to Councillor Chambers. St. George is an interesting place because all the industrial development that's happened there, industrial commercial development that's outside the core, is all on municipal water, but none of it is on wastewater. And there's no plan at this time to be converting that over because we're so tight with capacity. The next development that's approved there and could go ahead as we speak would be Panattoni, and it's going to go ahead on water and initially on private wastewater as well. So in that 412 cubic meters, industrial commercial development can happen under that. Obviously, it can't be large-scale wet industry, but some could happen, and some could happen initially, at least on the municipal water with private wastewater, if it was the right sort of a development. And, you know, we're seeing a lot of, around the county, a lot of logistics development, which needs very little in the way of wastewater. So even if it was hooked to wastewater, it's not going to take a lot of capacity up.
And just
So
to
they'll be
follow up,
considered as they come in.
yeah, and just to follow up, I can't visualize the designations for industrial, commercial in that area that have not been developed. Is there a large amount? Will this cover that, the 412?
Allison?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Chambers. So in St. George itself, Panattoni is by large going to be the biggest. So just down the road from the existing industrial park on Highway 5. And that's going to be a total build out approximately 1.2 million square feet. So it's quite large in that area. And then all the others are going to be relatively small. And in terms of balancing assessments, exactly why we wanted Canesville to start moving, because that's probably going to be the largest industrial development that we have left in the county.
And just, again, a follow-up, and I don't care who answers it, but we should be encouraging employment land development, obviously, and service land for industrial development is pretty rare, and it's pretty important. And I'm just thinking out loud that it's fine to increase the capacity for residential, but if you don't have service industrial land, your industrial developers are going to go to Woodstock, and where there is service land, and that impacts our assessment base negatively. And when we have the opportunity to increase our capacity, we should be cognizant of the fact that employment land is very, very important, and in serviced industrial land is very, very rare, and you can do the math. And if you keep doing that, your residential assessment is going to surpass your employment land assessment, and that's not good. And we're trending in that direction now, and we need to be cognizant of that. So hopefully some of this capacity can be used to service employment lands and be able to attract industrial assessment.
Allison?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Chambers, and I 100% agree with what you're saying. And, you know, part of the sort of difficulty here is the funding that's coming out of upper levels of government is primarily to encourage housing. So it's a bit of a catch-22, but I entirely agree with your point. We need to get industrial going. Again, that's why we want Kanesville to go so badly, so that we can actually get an entire industrial park, possibly more dense than what we have on Rest Acres Road moving.
Do you want to add anything to that, Rob? Are you good?
Just one thing, through the chair to Councilor Chambers. The area around the Panattoni development in St. George was all looked at as part of the interim control bylaw as well, and that will all be industrial commercial as well. So the footprint or the blueprint for the extension of services out there is all there. And it can happen, you know, on a case-by-case basis as the development comes forward there. And, you know, what we're depending on there is someone like Panattoni going ahead. Now, Panattoni, their first building, they have their approval, all their approvals to go, just obviously don't have a tenant yet. So when that happens, there'd be nothing stopping that from happening. And they've got a phase 2 as well. And then the lands around it will depend on the market. But it's all set up for it. Now, when we get to 3,900 cubic meters is a different thing, but that 3,900 cubic meters is a long time away.
Councilor Chambers?
Just to conclude, and probably Rob is aware of this, but I know this is a very, very hot topic in Oxford County right now, who's going to get it, residential or employment lands, and the Oxford County is trying to impress upon people that employment lands is important.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on either of these two reports? Okay, seeing none. So for 8.4, we've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And for 8.5, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, thank you for that. 8.6, RPT-0244-25, Road Safety Reserve Fund Policy. Can I get a mover? Councillor Bell, Mayor Bailey, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 8.7, RPT-0235-25, the Phase 2 of the Scotland-Oakland Master Environmental Servicing Plan. I think Dave wants to speak to this before we get going. Can I just get a mover? Councillor Coleman, seconder, Councillor Howes. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. Through the chair. So at its core, this report for the Scotland-Oakland Phase 2 Master Environmental Servicing Plan is really, it's a contract extension award and a budget allocation report. You know, council gave the direction to staff in February to pursue Phase 2. Since then, you know, Mark, Stephanie, Andrea, they've engaged the consultants and that we're working on Phase 1. And we've received pricing and, you know, it was basically we really wanted to proceed with the existing consultants. And then similarly, you know, that report in February indicated that budget would be approved through the 2026 budget process. But really, in order to get the work and get the deliverables that we need to come to this table to recommend a contract award and extension. And I'll just give a brief update of what's happened since February. Yeah, that's great. So one of the key findings of Phase 1 was the elevated nitrate levels in the private water services. And since then, you know, the county has been working with the public health team and a drinking water advisory was issued to those folks, mainly so that they are aware and informed and understand the risks and what is available to them. The county doesn't have care and control over those systems, but because of how this project's developed, we really wanted to have an active role in ensuring that those residents are aware. And the scope of Phase 2 itself, really the goal and why we're coming today for the award of the full contract instead of waiting for budget approval in 2026 and then coming again for contract award is, in early 2026, we expect to have a complete report that will assess all the private and public servicing alternatives for water, wastewater, stormwater, and transportation. Significant consultation with agencies and the public, as well as identifying the recommended preferred long-term solution. And an important factor of why we've, recommended that additional budget be approved now is many of these projects are what's called a Schedule B project that will come out of it. And really, we can proceed to design for the recommended projects at the completion of the report. So I guess in closing, the recommendation that staff are seeking is a $115,000 budget approval, which would be funded through water, wastewater, and water and wastewater development reserves, as well as contract extension for Stantec over the $250,000, and then Arcadis for $83,409.37. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Councillor Miller, Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Dave. Dave, and maybe this might have been an Alicia question, I don't know. I appreciate you giving us a timeline, April 2026. Obviously, a lot of people are waiting on this, but I want to ask about building going on in there. At planning, we did turn down a big development there of about 70 to 80 houses because of this issue. I don't know if everything that's been approved has been built out, but if we look at, say, infill or a lot here, a lot there, can they go ahead or not? Or is everything, should we be looking at an H for the entire area? H being for holding.
Through your worship, to Councillor Miller's question. So if anybody does have approval already, and they were past the building permit stage, they would be okay. So one of the issues with building permit is that they would need to demonstrate, and perhaps Andrea can speak a bit more, but one of the requirements would be that they would need to demonstrate that they do have a water source. So there would be an issue with that, and they would potentially get held up. Now, if they were able to demonstrate that, then they would be able to proceed, but maybe Andrea can provide a bit more detail on what it is that's required at that stage.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Miller. So future developments that are moving forward, we're giving very consistent comments that they still need to meet the requirements of the ministry guidelines, D55 for drinking water and D54 for private wastewater servicing. If they can demonstrate that they meet those requirements, they can move forward with their development. The recent developments that we did turn down that you were alluding to, both of those had some challenges with meeting those guidelines, and we're letting them know if you just pause, we are really looking at a community-wide solution so that we can move forward here.
Okay, so if I can just sum it up, if somebody asks, which somebody has asked, I want to build a house, I got the lot, yes, maybe I can build it, but I got to prove that it can meet those guidelines for the drinking water.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Miller, correct, and that's across the county of Brant, but we're being forthcoming with the community of Scotland and Oakland and letting them know that we understand there are enhanced concerns in that area.
Okay, fair enough, thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave, when we had the report some time ago about the drinking water quality, an advisory went out. What's been the response to that advisory?
Might as well stay up here, Andrea.
Sorry, should have asked Andrew.
It's okay.
Yeah. Through you, Chair, to Councillor Bell. Very positive response from the community with the county being forthcoming with this information. We did do a one-time nitrate sampling program with the community. I believe we received over 50 residents participating in that. No, sorry, but close to 80 residents participating in that across the communities of Scotland and Oakland. And they're just positive about the fact that the county is looking at the good of their water resource as we continue to look at ways to develop the community.
Thank you. And so, just to follow on, so as part of the extension of the work with Stantec and Arcadis, will we be looking at solutions at the unit housing level for existing residents of Scotland and Oakland, so that we can say, you've got a problem, here's the solutions that you may want to follow up on?
Through you, Chair, we are, one of the elements of the extension with Stantec is to take into consideration how the solution is going to benefit the existing community. It's not just focused on how to grow the community, but how are we going to manage the health and well-being of the existing community as we also try to grow the community. So
Okay,
it's a
thank you.
comprehensive solution.
Yeah, pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a problem with the report. The problem I have is the funding of the report of taking the water from the water reserves, wastewater reserves, water development charge reserve, and the wastewater development charges, where none of these areas have paid into the water reserves or wastewater. So the rest of the county has got to fund this, am I correct? That are on water.
Through the chair, looking at finance or someone to help me out on answering that question.
Stand by, Councillor Coleman.
I'm waiting.
Through the chair, the project is in the development charges background study, so it is raising funds from the developers to fund the DC portion of that. I can see your point on the rates. Now, it is a reserve funded, so self-sustaining, so those future users will pay into it eventually, so.
Councillor Coleman.
Further to that, you said future users. There never may be any future users there. That's where I'm coming from.
Through the chair, that's correct. And I would add that it's 90% development charges and 10% reserves.
Further to that, development charges are only going to come, is there enough development charges there already? Or we have to wait for the development charges for the proposed subdivision to come forward?
Through the chair, it is in the current background study. It's kind of fluid as to whether those particular funds or developers have paid in yet. But water and wastewater is an infrastructure that usually has to happen before you receive the DCs.
Councillor Coleman. Water, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Chambers.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. This isn't new. The village of Burford has been under the same regime for 30 or 40 years. They have high nitrates there, and they have things in place to monitor and reduce, et cetera. So Scotland is going to be the next Burford, but much of this is already being done and being done as we speak with the village of Burford, with mitigation and monitoring and this kind of stuff and building. So, you know, it's just now in Scotland, so.
Any other questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you for that. Okay, 8.8, RPT-0251-25, an overview of Bill 5, Protect Ontario and Unleashing Our Economy Act. I'm not sure, Zach, you want to speak to it first, or just questions, or? Mover and a seconder, please. Counselor Chambers, Counselor Oakley. Go ahead if you want to speak to it.
Sure. So through the chair to council today, we have just brought forward an overview of Bill 5. So this is really just an informational report about a number of the kind of main elements of the bill. As you'll see in the report, it is quite a sweeping piece of legislation which proposes changes, or which changes 7 acts and introduces 2 new acts. Some of the main changes that could impact the county are outlined within the report. One of the major ones being the introduction of the Special Economic Zones Act, which is a new piece of legislation that allows the province to, in theory, dictate certain zones throughout the province to be exempt from certain provincial and municipal legislation. Staff have kind of reviewed and pulled forward this informational report, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have, but I'm sure there'll be a broader discussion about it as well.
Questions on the report? Counselor Miller?
Just a quick question. Through you, Mr. Chair to Haley. Not in the report, but I'm just wondering, do you see any impact maybe to aggregate applications? We talk about mining, obviously they're not mines, but we talk about special economic zones. They're obviously special, needed for economic activity. I just, have you heard anything or?
The focus of the legislation as it's written and as it reads and as the province talks about it, it's very much focused on, it seems to be Northern Ontario and mining and resource extraction and energy projects up north. That being said, the way that the Special Economic Zones Act is written is it's quite general. There's no criteria or scope outlined in it as it is, so it could have impacts on that particular industry as well and be used to support that.
Yeah, and they want to mess around with the environmental assessment, so it could happen, but I guess we'll wait and see. So, okay, just wanted to see if you had heard anything. Thank you.
Councillor Oakley?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for this report. I think it highlights a lot of the concerns that I had with Bill 5 here. And actually reminds me of last week at Councillor Pierce's comments on Bill 17. This seems to be another bill where expediency seems to be the only guiding principle of this. I mean, all the changes outlined in Bill 5 could be done by modifying acts, but they've chosen not to do any of that and just give themselves a pretty universal tool in the special economic zone to just ignore any local planning authorities, any local laws, environmental protection, so on and so forth, you know, on a per use basis. So yeah, I'm pretty concerned by this bill, and thank you for the report.
Councillor Chambers?
Just in addition to this report, the representatives of GRCA may have got the response to Bill 5 from Conservation Ontario, and if staff can find that and circulate it, it's the perspective of the conservation authorities with regard to some of the environmental concerns.
Be good to have that. Any other questions on this report? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, 8.8.1, notice of motion. Councillor Oakley, that's good a motion. Did you want to, you're just bringing that forward that you're going to be? Okay.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Yeah, I'm bringing forward, it's essentially the same motion that I was going to move last month that we deferred until we had this report in front of us. I plan to introduce this next week unless council wanted to just deal with it now. It's largely the same motion as then, just with some additional context of, since we're now after the legislation has passed, and with some additional context that came out of our Indigenous neighboring councils and the sort of advocacy that they've taken with the bill.
Okay, so we'll look forward to that next A&E.
At the next council meeting next week.
Okay, perfect. Okay, righty. That's it for section 8. Section 9, committee reports. Brant Connects committee report. Can I get a mover Mayor Bailey, Councillor Miller. Questions on that report? Councillor Miller?
Not a question, but just a comment, Mr. Chair. And not everything makes it into the recommendations, and we aren't all up to speed on what's going on sometimes. But I just wanted to say that there's a few residences throughout the county that will not be covered by the provincial programs, the ASIP programs. But I am happy to say that we have some residences out on Norwich Road. They got skipped. They are now getting some work done in front of their houses. So that's a good news story, because at this committee, we do share a lot of information about things we didn't know about before. So through the efforts of members of the committee, we have managed to do some good. So I just wanted to report that.
Very good. Anything else on that report? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9.2, Brant Heritage Committee Report. Mover, Councillor McAlpine, Councillor Howes. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9.3, Biggers Lane Landfill Liaison Committee Report. Can I get a mover? Councillor Miller, Councillor Garneau. Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, Section 10, Communications, I do not see any. Section 11, Other Business. Councillor Kyle, you had something.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. Now that we have the dig out front here in full swing, we're starting to see a lot more traffic using the west bypass, which I think is great, but I have had a number of questions from residents wondering about when the temporary traffic lights will be installed at the end of Keg Lane and as well at Powerline Road. So wondering if staff could give us an update on that.
I think that's a question around the horseshoe, so thank you for asking. It's the man with the answers, right, Mark?
Through the chair to Councillor Kyle. I wish I had an exact answer for you. I did reach out to the consultant that's doing the design yesterday and again this morning, saying it's urgent that we find out what the timing is going forward. We have seen a draft design, so we know it's not too far away, but probably even if we got the design later this week or next week, it's probably a month before it would be in place, just because by the time you get locates and materials and the contractor on board. I have proposed to Dave, I just sent the email this morning, about the potential of putting in a temporary all-way stop at that intersection as an interim until we get to that point of the lights going in, just to allow that traffic off of Keg Lane to move, because we are aware and we've heard multiple requests and have seen it ourselves, like the traffic backed up. So we're working towards a solution. When we know timing on the signals, I will provide that answer as to when we better have it. But I think if we go through the process and decide on the temporary signals and get them in place as quickly as possible, that should at least solve part of the problem temporarily until the lights are in place.
Let's go.
And sorry, to answer the other part, Powerline Road, we know it's coming. We're working on that one. It's a little bit more difficult because of the hydro transmission line. So there's more of a challenge there. And we did request that the Keg Lane one be put as a priority just because of the nature of where the turning movements were. So again, when I have an answer on that one, I'll provide it as well.
Thank you. So correct me if I'm wrong here, but I thought like we were talking about the temporary lights at those two locations like months ago, prior to the day. I'm just curious as to, you know, why we're just, you spoke that we're in the design phase now. I thought that was all like a couple months ago looked after.
Through you, to you again, Chair. Yes, we have reached out. We did start the process in April or earlier in March, and we're still working through it. It's some things, it just seems like a lot of things that we do with consultants just take longer than we expect, and we were hoping that they would be installed by now and this would be alleviated, but we have been trying to move this thing as best we can, and so.
Okay, I appreciate that. You're good, Councillor Kyle? Okay. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Kyle asked my very question. But I do have actually a related question, and that is, could staff give us an update on when the additional temporary parking will be completed downtown?
Through the chair to Councillor Bell, it's currently being worked through from an archaeological standpoint. That work needs to be done and cleaned up first before we can move forward with the parking itself. So they've started the work, it's ongoing. Again, we're probably a month away from it being, depending on how everything goes. But we did get an update the other day that they've made through stage 3, likely having to go to a stage 4. So that's as much as I can provide right now.
Okay, disappointing, but okay.
Okay. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item is regarding some hydro poles on Bishop's Gate. They are by the employment lands. Grand Bridge Energy is going to move these poles from the east side of Bishop Gate to the west side. Apparently, that's at the direction of the county. Currently, on the west side, there is some rye growing. And right now, it's obviously agricultural land on the other side. So the question is, and there must be a reason, so that's what I'm looking for. Why are these poles being moved? Right now, they are on employment lands, industrial lands, which makes sense to leave them there from my perspective, but maybe we can be enlightened on why they're being asked to move.
Okay. Rob?
Through the chair to Councillor Miller, definitely got to get those tables moved out. That's dangerous. Anyways, so the poles you're talking about, it's all related to the Bishop's Gate drain. So we're digging a big ditch there, and those poles are going to fall over if they stay where they are. They have to be moved or put in substantially different, and this is the solution they've come up with. This has taken way longer than it should have, way longer.
Okay. That's a good answer. So, and now the second issue there, Mr. Chair, is, I've got this written somewhere. I wanted to talk about the Veterans Park walkway out in Burford. This was brought up last November, 2024. Next year is the 100th anniversary of the Legion organization in Canada. Back in November, we talked about what would be a good way to honor the veterans. We talked about a crosswalk on the road, maybe banners. So anyways, the Legion has decided on a walkway, but they haven't heard from staff. And I don't know where this has gone. Because what I'd like to know is the design, where it could go. Is the Legion kicking in some money? Is it the county kicking in some money? So all these things, we haven't, I'd like to see something come in front of us and some movement on that. So how does one go about making that happen? So we can honor these, the veterans.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Miller. So I know Greg Demers is working on this. My understanding is he has had some interaction with the Legion on this. Unfortunately, he's away on holiday right now, so as soon as he's back, I will ask him to send, at least contact you or send a Friday file with an update of where it is.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to see it put off too long, but I think he is back next week, so. Okay, I'll leave it till I hear from him. Thank you.
Mayor Bailey?
Through you, Mr. Chair, in regards to this walkway, we need to make a revenue of 100 years problems. So we think we should price one up for St. George, one for Burford, and one for Paris. I think that way we're consistent. I don't know if anyone else in town has a Legion. Oh. Okay, still,
Okay.
we have the Legion, we have the counties in the middle of nowhere, we have launching pad or something. So let's just count on Paris, St. George, and Burford, just to do them all the same. And they do all have roads that make sense, or walkways that we just.
Mr. Mayor, turn your mic. Is it?
Oh, it's not working.
Is it okay?
It's not working.
Hello, So through the chair, I was just saying that with the crosswalk that Councillor Miller's speaking of, if we could price 3 of them, one for St. George, one for Burford, and one for Paris. I know that it came up in Paris before, and it's come up in in St. George before, so. And then unfortunately, our other Legion in the country doesn't really have a walkway to go anywhere, but we could maybe go back to the property and see if there was something that was, even from the front door of the Legion to the parking lot, that's where we line up when we do our special Remembrance Day service out there. So maybe see if there's any way we could put one out there too, but for sure the 3 main players, I think.
Duly noted. Okay, there was, Councillor Oakley?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to jump in while we're in this business here and talk about the downtown dig. I just want to compliment staff on how that's been handled so far. I've been in a number of businesses talking to the business owners, and all of them pretty universally have said that the impact has not been nearly as bad as they expected. All the help's been great, so I just want to commend staff on how that project's proceeding, because I think it's been going as well as it can with how disruptive it is tearing up the main street in Paris.
Thanks for that. Okay, so nobody else had anything under other business? Anything anybody wants to add? Okay, seeing none, number 12 is going in camera. So convene in camera to discuss RPT-0247-25 Grand River Street North property acquisitions, RPT-0240-25 Business and Technology Solutions Update and Resources, RPT-0248-25 Citizen Appointment to the Brand Heritage Committee, and 12.4, the Biggers Lane Landfill Liaison Committee in-camera reports. Mayor Bailey, Councillor Oakley, 2 minutes, folks. Okay, so we are back in open session. Thank you very much. We need to ratify RPT-0248-25, the citizen appointment to the Brant Heritage Committee. And the committee chose Chantel Campbell and Michael Hart. Can I get a mover? Mayor Bailey, Councillor McAlpine. Any questions on that? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay, I don't see anything else on the agenda. So our next committee meeting is July 15th. I guess Mr. Walton left us. I was going to thank him for this being his last admin and ops meeting, but I guess he'll have to wait on that. Motion to adjourn. Councillor House. We are adjourned.